right, well, hey, my name is Pastor Jonathan Freed. I'm the worship pastor here at Rainbow Forest. I got my coffee. It is Monday morning, and we are ready to roll with another episode of Between Sundays. I am excited because I have my good friend here, Shannon Smith, who is a deacon. He serves with us on a regular basis. It's good to have you here, Shannon. Why don't we just start by sharing a little bit about yourself, how you and your family came to Rainbow, how long you've been here, why you're here at Rainbow. I'm sure everybody would be delighted to hear a little bit about that.
I don't know if they'll be delighted, but I'll tell them anyway.
Sure.
My wife, Pam, and then I've got two kids, Allie and David.
Sure.
We've been here since we started coming actually before Allie was born.
Wow.
Our neighbors, we lived in another part of Botetourt County, and they invited us to come. And,
It's over 20 years then?
Yeah, this would have been, let's see, Allie was born in 2002, so this would have been probably 2001 that we started coming here.
That's great.
And, we were kind of looking for a church, and we'd been to a few here in the area, and just hadn't found one that felt right. And so they invited us to come, and my wife, she gets a big kick out of hearing this, but I wasn't really into the big music, and it's good for me to tell. It's good for me to tell you this, but we were meeting in the gym, and I come from more of a small country church background,
Sure.
And so it just seemed like a lot of a production to me.
Yeah.
And but Pastor Mike, he taught from the Word, he preached from the Word. It wasn't his interpretation. It wasn't, it was the Word, and it may step on toes, but it was the Word, and that's what really pulled me here. And we're still here just because this is family. This is home.
Sure.
Our kids, they grew up here, so that's why we're here.
Yeah, you've been here certainly since I started about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah,
and
I remember moving you into the first house over there in Vinton.
Okay, yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
over there in Vinton, for sure, yeah. And it's cool to see those relationships form over the years, and those are, I think, one of the biggest things for people to, create relationships,
Sure.
and for have them to, stay in one spot and to plant those roots down deep.
Yeah,
So,
like I said, our family, our family has grown up here, not just our kids. Our family has grown up here, and just the commitments that the other folks here at Rainbow have made, in our lives, all of our lives, through whatever trials or troubles or or celebrations or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's family.
Yeah, that's what it's about. That's awesome. Well, yeah, let's kind of switch gears here and talk about the sermon a little bit. So Psalm 103. So Kevin Spencer is his first time preaching at Rainbow, actually. I think he did an amazing job, and going over Psalm 103 and remembering who God is and remembering what God has done. He kind of did the high fives, which I thought was a great way to remember those things. But just curious, what were your big takeaways from the sermon yesterday?
Well, the biggest one is Kevin's really brave getting up there and singing. I wouldn't have done that. I really wouldn't have. But
he's opened the doorway for other pastors to start singing during their sermons. So
I'm looking forward to that. John, here's your call out right now.
Go.
But I'm surprised it was Kevin's first time truly delivering a sermon. I've heard him speak other times, and I'm kind of jealous of his students just because I think he did a great job.
Sure.
Really illustrating it and telling a lot of good stories to go along with it. But yeah, I mean, it's, and we covered that in my small group yesterday as well.
Great.
And so, we really see David, as Kevin said, really, really drawing the picture, painting the picture of who God is and what God is.
Yeah.
I guess to me, there was a lot of connections there with different parts of my life from 103 that just really connected with me. So I really enjoyed it. I liked how Kevin brought it out.
Yeah. I love what he said about, he went to basically, I think the first point was he forgives your iniquities, and Kevin was like, hey, we could stop right there.
Oh, absolutely.
And that would be enough. And he mentioned a couple of times, like, I could camp out on this word for the rest of the month or whatever. And I think that's very true. But I think there's a solid point that, forgiveness, it's the beginning of the life of a believer. That's kind of what everything hinges on for us. Without forgiveness, we don't experience anything else that God has for us, any of those blessings. And I think that's so important and so crucial for us to remember that that He does that for us. But also, just thinking about David and David's life and how he experienced that forgiveness, and how what struck me was thinking about all the things that David went through. Like David's life, I mean, he was a man after God's own heart, but he certainly had his mistakes that he made, and the things that he went through, like the adultery with Bathsheba. I mean, two of his sons, I believe, were murdered, and he just had a lot of things that he went through. And if he didn't experience that forgiveness from God, that continuing forgiveness from God, like I'm just thinking, like he would have given up so many times.
Sure.
Like. And it's the same for us as believers. Like if we don't, I know forgiveness is the start of our Christian life, but if we don't continue to experience that forgiveness as we walk and toil on with God and experience His grace, then we would just kind of throw our hands up and be like, man, well, I messed up.
Yeah.
I'm done.
And we went over this in my small group, but like you said, just David and his life, and I really didn't get into the Psalms. I really didn't appreciate the Psalms.
Sure.
And until I got a little bit, I won't say older, but maybe a little bit more practiced in life. We won't use that 3-letter word old, but I really didn't, I guess, relate. But David, he had plenty of struggles. Saul wanted to kill him, and his best friend Jonathan was killed. Loss of his friend. His son tried to take his throne.
Yep. That
the
wasn't
murder,
the first time somebody tried
the
to take his
murder,
throne.
the adultery. The
stuff.
problems with his children, the ongoing struggles in his family. How does it go? That the sword shall not depart from your family.
Yeah.
So we see the struggles he went through, and yet he still praises God. It's not even it's not that it's just I choose to praise God. Looking at the text, bless the Lord, O my soul. It's an invitation. It's not a request though. That's a command.
Sure.
And having been in the military, been in law enforcement, a command is a command, and you don't get to.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then at the end, David commands, even the creation.
The others. Yeah.
Others, commands others, and then commands, the creation.
Yep.
To bless the Lord. And the translation of bless, you can look at some of the different meanings of that word as you take it from Hebrew, but to bless, to praise, to adore, but then also to kneel. Mm-hmm. And I really got a lot out of that.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like you were saying, in the military, law enforcement, it's just something you're trained to do. You're told to do something and you do it. And I think that's important, but also to remember that God tells us to do these things not only for His glory, but for our good, for our benefit. It's things that we may not understand in the time. Like, why do I have to do? Like, I really want to run to this sin because it feels good, but God's saying, you don't know really what's good for you. This is what you need to do to obey me and to praise me. And I think that's an important element of, even when we don't fully understand why, it is ultimately for our good and for God's glory.
Yeah, we have the command. Bless the Lord, and he says it not once, not twice, but 3 times. Yeah. It's kind of like your mom, using your full name. It gets your attention.
Sure.
But it's not just a one-way thing.
Yeah.
It's not just you obey me and that's it.
Right.
It's you obey me, and here's what you get out of it.
Yeah. It's a relationship.
Forgiveness, healing.
Yeah.
Redemption from the pit, and as Kevin said, you could camp on any one of those points for a long time.
Absolutely.
And just like I said, it took me getting older and more mature and going through more trials in my life and my family's lives to really appreciate the Psalms. And
the Psalms they're tricky because they're really, it's poetry. It's not written in a way that is straightforward, or it's not a narrative. And so kind of understanding how, poetry was written back then. There's a lot of parallelism. There's a lot of things that can kind of help you understand. But I agree with you. Like, they are hard to try to interpret and try to decipher sometimes. So I'm thankful for the series Summer in the Psalms to kind of go through these and help the congregation actually understand how to read Psalms as well. And you were saying, like, it's for our benefits. It's not just obey and that's the end. It's kind of what Kevin was saying about compassion, of how Jesus had compassion, and it's not just a well, I had compassion, but there was always an action to it. And it made me think, compassion is a verb. Compassion is teaching. Compassion is praying for people. It's those things that God does for us, that he shows us that he's compassionate towards us.
Yes.
Just like a father to his children.
Yeah,
so,
you've got that ongoing relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a once and done.
Yeah.
It's not a past tense. He is in this chapter. He is on his throne.
Yes. Yeah, and this is written at the end of David's life, so it's not like he's just experiencing these things for the first time. These are like proven and true and tried for David. But yeah, Kevin mentioned the word redeems and how it's not a transaction, like a money transaction word. It's a family word. It kind of goes back to that relationship, and made me think about how God redeems us, not to just a one and done, like, okay, you're redeemed, now you can go and do whatever you want. Like, no, you're redeemed into the family of God so that you can bless others and be a part of the family of God as your redemption story, which I thought was pretty really cool that he explained it that way.
Before you're kind of like a coupon. Before you're redeemed, you have no cash value. You've got no value.
Yeah.
Once you're redeemed is when you have your value.
Yeah.
And again, the fatherly relationship.
Yeah.
You get your value through the relationship.
Right. It's good.
There's a lot of facets to this.
That's good stuff. Yeah, we could talk about it probably for another, like Kevin said, for all month long. But only have a few more minutes here. Just want to switch gears again and maybe talk about your role in the church. You serve faithfully as a deacon at Rainbow Forest, and I know the word deacon might not, people might not know what really that means. Or, hey, I'm a deacon. Well, that's great. Maybe you serve more, or what does being a deacon mean, or what does being a deacon to you as you serve? I think to help enlighten maybe congregation members who don't necessarily know exactly what deacons do at Rainbow. So why don't you just kind of fill us in on what you do as a deacon? Yeah,
a lot of churches handle deacons differently, different denominations and whatnot. And there's a little bit of blurred lines between deacons and elders, and
right.
But deacons here at Rainbow Forest, we're servants. We meet once a month, and we get together and pray over the congregation, to pray over the prayer concerns here at Rainbow. But we're also just hands and feet. Usually that looks like helping out with projects here around the church, whether it be flooring in the children's center, or
I've seen you go around and fill in the cards in the back of the chairs.
Yeah, I'll be doing that when I get done here, just because I've got a little bit of time, I think. But go and it's just one thing that needs to get done, and so I'll put the cards and the envelopes and whatnot in the seat backs. We help with communion, but then we're also it's not just, I guess I call that more admin stuff, but those members that need a ride somewhere, for medical treatment, for grocery shopping, something. It might be helping them. It might be mowing grass. It might be putting a new lock in a door for somebody, for a widow or an elderly couple. I don't. You hear the term and people might think it's a mystery. Oh, it's somebody special.
Sure.
We're just servants using our God-given abilities and talents and skills, and sometimes just a vehicle to help other members of the congregation, other members of the family here.
The word that comes to my mind is example. So you're talking about doing all these things, and they're really things that every Christian is called to do.
Sure.
But I think there's a higher standard when you're called as the to the church as a deacon. And it's very helpful, I think, just on the practical side for the church. Like you mentioned, that there's just practical needs that people have all the time. Like a tree falls down in the back of somebody's yard who they're not able to cut it up themselves, or they don't have the money or the means to take care of that. Well, we have a team of deacons and pastors who are able to just kind of get the word out and take care of those things, which is very helpful to kind of spread the hands and feet of Christ to do that in a practical way. But also, I think you guys are, looked at too as examples for those who want to grow in their faith or want to know what it means to serve the church in a very effective way, in a very godly way. You guys are good examples of how to do that.
I don't know if I'm a good example. The more I learn, the more I find out, the more I've got to learn. So
that's a good example. I think right there is a good example of how you're a good example. Like bringing alongside younger men or younger women who want to serve as well. Hey, this is what we do. This is why we do it, and to make a pathway too for those younger men who desire or are called to be deacons and elders as well. So well, we appreciate all the work that you do and all the other deacons as well. And I know part of that, maybe as we close here, you specifically help out with the Friendship House. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Friendship House? Maybe some people don't know what that is and what you guys do there.
It's a really fun ministry. Aaron and Faith Dowdy, and they have others that have partnered with them, but they're in downtown Roanoke, and they're ministering to a segment of our population that get overlooked a lot. The refugee and immigrant families that are coming to the Roanoke area.
Sure.
And so they're not only providing material goods, which is it's a small part, and that's kind of where Kevin and Martha and some other younger folks here in the church have been coming to help. But we move furniture every first Tuesday of the month. Sure. We'll take donated furniture and then we'll turn right around and we might pick it up from somebody's house, and I have a pickup. God-given equipment, like I said.
That's a necessity for a deacon to have, is a pickup.
Yeah, you need a pickup. If you have some moving blankets and some dollies, that helps too.
Sure.
But we'll take it straight to these immigrant families and refugee families.
And I'm sure you pray for them and take the opportunity to share the gospel as you're doing those, if you have the chance, the opportunity.
If there's a chance, a lot of times there's a language barrier, and so we're just doing the best we can.
True.
But there's other times where you get to it's very humbling. There's times that we'll take them, and it's just a chair, it's just a couch, it's just a table.
Yeah.
But then they are so overjoyed to have it, because we go into these apartments and they're sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
They might have a sheet to lay on the floor, some of these apartments. And, we don't realize how good we have it.
Yeah.
But we take them, and it's a little thing that we do, but then they pray over us. And it, like I said, it's just truly humbling.
Sure.
And you don't get 6.5 feet tall by not liking to eat, but occasionally they will offer, because many of their cultures, that's their form of hospitality.
Yeah.
They'll offer some small thing, but it's frequently it's super good, and so we're just blessed doing that. But the Friendship House, they have the furniture that we deliver. They also do some clothing distribution, some food distribution. They have classes teaching English as a second language.
Okay.
They do childcare. Yeah. And they have some other classes for adults for practical things like budgeting and finance and things like that. They help them with their immigration status. Wow. They're making connections there. So I don't know that I can really do justice to describing what all the Friendship House does, but they're working with those people to to meet a very real need,
Sure.
and very tangible needs, but then also trying to spread the gospel.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a blessing, being the hands and feet of Christ in a very practical way. There.
If this sounds like something you'd like to do and
yeah,
get
I was
involved
going to
with,
say, how can people be involved?
talk to myself, talk to Kevin and Martha.
Sure.
Call the Friendship House and talk to Faith or some of the other folks there.
Yeah.
Because they've got stuff going every day of the week, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So not just Tuesdays.
If you don't want to move furniture, but you want to, sort clothes, or you want to help the inventory of the food pantry, or
Sure.
can watch kids for a little while moms are taking a class or something.
Yeah.
Aaron and Faith and company can always use
Yeah.
you and your skills, whatever they are,
Sure.
to help further that ministry.
Maybe Kevin can start singing to the families now that we know.
Let's get back to the furniture movie.
Now that we know that is a skill that he has. Well, yeah, you heard it from Shannon himself. If you want to help out with that in any way, just reach out to him. And Shannon, very grateful for you and grateful that you were brave enough to come on to the podcast and share a little bit about how you serve the church, and really appreciate the discussion with you. And we will see you guys next time on Between Sundays. We hope you have an excellent week.